SATSANG 4. April 7, 2019. So, we continue on this notion of sacred fire, or on anything else. It's the last hour of SATSANG, if you want to talk about other things, or do we continue on these data? Sister, I just wanted to know the difference between wait, microphone, here, no, don't move, I'll move. Next, the difference between the fire of the Sacred Heart and the resonances of the Agape network. And I repeat, it is an outcome. That's what I was saying, it's the same alchemical process that mixes all the structures, the double terrace, the channel. Sister, is it the same thing? It's the same thing, but it's the end result. This result leads to what, in difference compared to Agape network resonance, which began to work at the level of healings, even without asking me, there is the formal concretization in the matter of this resonance which, I remind you, was happening between people, especially in Agape network resonance, where there is no one. Now, weary this body, since we imagine that there is a transmitter, a receiver, and as we said, there is neither transmitter nor a receiver, but it means touching the physical. And so, it's a paradigm shift, that is, what you did there, what people do at home, when they did it sometimes. You know, I never have anyone who will ask me for care every week, or every fortnight or every day. People do it once, twice, 3 times, and then they understood, as the testimony I just read to you. She doesn't need to write it down or ask for it, she doesn't even connect with me anymore, she connects with the people who are networked among, the people we frequent most, because we are very involved on the internet. She doesn't have to go through me, she understood, she has lived. She plugs into one of the people, you or Bridget, or anyone else, there will be the same effect. At that point, there is no longer any need to ask, register or anything, as explained in the testimony I just read to you, that is, that this person was cleaning up and all of a sudden she felt something was going on, she plugged into Facebook and saw that we were live. I wasn't doing anything about her, just as we were with the SATSANG, of course, even if it's JLA speaking, we're more aligned at 0 time, no matter what I say, no matter what you say, because that's the way it is. And at that moment, she took advantage of it, she didn't know about it. She hadn't asked for anything. So, the fire of the Sacred Heart is only a logical continuation, if you will, it is the glorious heart of Christ, that is, it materializes the Christic state. You're in this Christ-like state in your flesh, not in heaven, or after death, or when you have settled all your sins, it is happening now. And so, it's going to get easier and easier. More and more simple. The most complicated thing is to accept to lose these damn habits that we have all had, to want to know if it is good or bad, to want to know if it is good for us or not good for us, to want to know if what we feel is good, bad or other, since the effect follows directly and the paradigm change or the change in point of view of the observer who becomes the eternal I is instantly acquired. See? All that remains to be done is not, it's really what we've called unconscious behavioral habits. These are the strategies we adopted without our knowledge, which work automatically, with regard to feelings, emotions, visions, all that. And now, you're going to get more and more testimonies like that, but once again, it's not Jean-Luc or Young, since it can be alternated with anyone else, who is part of the network, in quotation marks, Agape, whether on the internet or elsewhere, since not everyone is on the internet. But in the Agape network, everyone knows it, you can see the comments of the people who transcribe, who are together, who exchange among themselves, who grow each time, well, there is Annette, there is Laura, there are many people. And the people, brothers and sisters, who are not intimately part of this organization, they have understood that it is enough to think either JLA or one of the nodal satellites, consider it as a computed network, that's all. In fact, at the time, we said that the first computer genius was Moses. Well, yes, he carved the tables of the law. It's a computer system, I already explained that. At first, we didn't understand why Michael Avanov had asked us to publish everything on the internet. Even then, we said, but he's crazy, we're going to have all the trouble on earth. He knew what he was doing, because it was the fastest way, at one point, to establish this famous network. In other words, we have gone from a virtual network that is the binary beast, artificial intelligence and the internet, the World Wide Web. It is satanic in essence. We transformed him. I explained all this last year. And you're living it now. And indeed, we don't need the internet. The proof, she wasn't on the internet, she was cleaning up. All of a sudden she was going through the same thing. Because we are not only interlinked in network by the Agape network resonance and the Christic matrix, but in addition, we really live that we are one in the other. Not only in essence, we are from the same particle, we are the same particle, taken at another time, in the same space, the Earth, since space has been enclosed, but in multiple times. As I told you, even the cells that make up our bodies, do not evolve in the same time-space as us. We know very well, for example, when we say that we make a decision, I explained it to you, it is not we who decide, it is the bacteria in our stomach. The choices we make in life, the simplest ones, buying clothes, changing cars. So for guys, we're going to study the technical data sheet, the power, the equipment. In fact, that's not what makes the purchase decision, it's the circuits, what we call the reward and punishment, that is to say the star good and bad, attraction pulse, that are there, on the forehead. And not all the decisions you think you're making are made by you. They're taken by your reptilian brain, they're behavioral injunctions. That's why I insisted at length on behavior. There were some who ran away, because they were fed up, all the people who were scrupulous habits. We eat at such and such a time, we do it at such and such a time. Well, they couldn't keep up, they were too rigid, too fossilized. It doesn't matter, they'll explode too. That is why this notion of behavioral or energetic or even vibratory habits, which has been so useful, is now an obstacle. But we must not fight against it, we just have to translate your conscience. How to translate your consciousness, as long as you do not feel that you are there or there, that is, in the heart or on the forehead, simply by embracing, because embracing creates the alchemy that makes you pass spontaneously from person to heart. And it's done by itself. It is not a decision, it is not a technique, as I said, it is not a practice, it is a mechanism that is similar to magic, even if we notice, as I told you, that when you are in the person, the energy is at the level of the head, when you are in the heart, the energy is really in the heart, you feel it. But it is just a pedagogical, didactic method, which allows, through words, to live the quality of the awareness of this word. There you go. Embracing, agape, well, that's the way it is. You have all noticed that by repeating agape, agape, agape or feham, 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 well, that's where it goes. You see, it's natural. But since it's a video game, for me it's awfully simple, because as soon as I've accepted this principle and seen it in action, I know that everything I can say will be right. Not at the level of my person, I told you, I'm wrong all the time, but at the level of what I'm expressing here, it can't be wrong, it's impossible. I'm not the one who's convinced, it's all been written. And when I come down into my person, well, I do like everyone else, no more and no less. And from the moment you're in the reception, you can no longer be in the projection in the future, you can no longer be affected by any past whatsoever, because embracing places you in the present moment, it is equivalent. It is the same magical dynamic, we can say, that lets you to live agape love, that is, no longer being dependent on the next moment or the past moment. However, any energetic or vibratory referential, even if it is useful to say so, since we have talked about it, I have again talked about the different manifestations that were happening at chest level, all this must be overcome, but not by a will, not by an intention, by embracing. That's transparency, that's the way of childhood, it's been explained so much over the years. Except that we are in the process of putting this into practice, we're really in the daily practice, every minute of every day. And that's how it happens, and that's how you realize it. The testimonies like that are coming in now, you're going to have more and more of them, and fortunately, it's good for me, because people, spontaneously, don't hang on to it, that is, they don't consider me a guru, a master, a savior, or anything, since they understand that it's me or Inet or anyone else, it will do the same thing, for those who are enough in the present moment. This proves that it is a collective process that does not depend on a master, or a hierarchy or someone who would be above or I do not know where. since I'm telling you that all this was written. And moreover, we have already experienced it, necessarily, at the initial moment of creation. We just forgot about it. There is nothing more, nothing less. And if you take that point of view, I mean acceptance of that point of view even without understanding it and even without living it. Try it, you'll see, it's over. I don't need to convince you, I can only tell you, do it, you'll see for yourself, that's understanding. This cannot be the result, even if there are reference points at the channeling level, at the ultimate level, at AYOUN and others, it is only your living it that will sit you in this. I can only enlighten your attention by telling you, as has been done over the past year, about habits, behaviors, and it was the same for me, habits and behaviors. Because we see very well the others, but we do not see our own, at all levels, even if only by words you repeat, by behaviors that you have that seem totally natural and that are aberrant. But that's for everyone. The one who doesn't accept that and thinks he's above that, he doesn't understand anything. They are all gurus in yellow or white dresses, you know, there are plenty of them right now. I don't mention names, but when you discover what is illuminated right now, even with the big tops of the advert of danger, it makes you shudder. Because there are so many people who express themselves as the advocate of danger. Yes, they do, but they do not live it. It is mental, it is conceptual, it is not lived. Because when it is lived, well, I'm sorry, you can no longer use archetypes or speak a religious, spiritual or other language. It's not possible, it's not possible. And you cannot do otherwise, even if you wish, than to embrace and accept a cross, and to be transparent, and to serve everyone. Because, by serving the other, you know you are helping yourself. You help yourself through the other. And that's how self-healing is done. It will not happen before, as I told you yesterday, I told you that self-healing will become possible, as long as you accept and embrace your worst enemy. And these are not jokes. The worst of the worst, that you know in your life, or in the history of this world, must be eaten and identified inside you. The devil is in everyone, besides it is the reptilian brain, We didn't call it the reptilian brain by accident. It is the brain of automatisms, it is the seat of apparent individuality, it is the fact of believing oneself separated, the fact of believing oneself a body. All this is dictated by the reptilian brain. And we know that you have a neuroscientist named Madame Boltic, who made a superb video several years ago, who is a neuroscientist, who had a stroke, on a hemisphere of the brain, that of reason. She knew what it was, but when she came back and they treated her, she explained that this moment was unique in her life, because she had access to everything. There was no longer the filter of the mind, there was no longer the filter of habits, there was no longer the filter of individuality and history, she was free. So, if you want, that's exactly it. What you are experiencing at the moment is exactly that. It is the rediscovery, the end of oblivion, the awakening, if you will, or the end of the dream, and which cannot leave any doubt on the fact that, even if you still have suffering, or emotional, material or other contingencies, that this is nothing compared to the truth. It's a game. So, a morbid game, in some cases, especially when you suffer, but you see, even the little testimony I just read, this person is blocked from the back, he puts himself back in the heart, the pain disappears. But you will all experience it, not only for a small pain that passes, but even for organic diseases. That's the way it is. And it's going to work better and better. And it's going to be more and more immediate. That's what I told you. For example, when you work on memory elimination, you do indeed take them off your head, but 20 years later, they come back down into the body as degenerative diseases, systematically. And that, I can affirm in a formal way. All the people who have worked on memoirs, and it is very serious what I am saying here, and I am saying it recorded, but I was the first one to work on my memoirs. You are treating something, indeed, even something very dense. I am not talking about energies or behaviors, but really a physical injury, and 10 years later, 20 years later, people will have a degenerative problem, because what you were from the head is evacuated into the body, but not immediately, 10 to 20 years later. That's it. When you understood that and you saw it and you explained it even, in terms of energy or neuroscience, well, the others until they've experienced it, they can't accept what I'm saying, especially if it's their livelihood, or their way of functioning, but they have to face that. So, if you will, apart from the moment today, there is nothing else. So, calling embrace, let us leave the words to work if we want, Agape, fire of the Sacred Heart. Because it is still important, it is a support, if I can say so, but that is all. True autonomy and freedom, it is now, it does not depend, and it will be all the stronger as the societal fabric, the events on Earth, will increase. This is already the case. And that's normal. As soon as there is no longer any control over the so-called societal conventions, laws, operating rules, you're free. And since everything is falling at that level, the more chaos there will be, the more joy you will feel, whatever the state of your body, whatever the state of your psyche, it is inevitable. And when I say, it's not a joke, when I tell you that we're going to die laughing, it's actually the case, at the moment of the stasis, or the event. And since the event will in fact coincide with all the events we see, both socially and geophysically, as well as in terms of what we will see in the sky at all levels, and what we will experience inside, we will be totally decoupled from the dream. You're on this world, but you are not of this world. It's nice to accept it like that intellectually, but you have to live it. And when you experience it, paradoxically, you're even more alive, that is, you're even more attentive to the other, you're even more respectful of any other, because you know that he is you. You know this, not because you have accepted it, but because you live it in your flesh. That's what happens there, when you made the sacred fire of the heart, yesterday, you felt that, and it will do it to you in front of everyone. Again, when that happens, don't try too hard to use the visions or information you have, go through all this to get to the heart of the heart. Do not let yourself be stopped by the feelings, by the visions, by the emotions, by the perceptions, because just behind that, well, there is this ineffable joy, this unspeakable truth that is there. And moreover, now, as you're experiencing it, it only takes once. As soon as you have experienced it once, it is over. Because you understand it, and at that moment you can no longer be fooled. There may still be some habits that spin in a freewheeling way, let's say, but that move away as they go along. All the reflexes we have all had, of survival, protection, security, intellectual understanding, are swept away by love. Love needs nothing, it does not need a body, it does not need a world, it does not need energy, it does not need vibration, it does not need self, it does not need a world. It is the Parabrahman, it is the Absolute. The unknown who makes himself known and who lives himself. So of course, we are not all in the same stage of this alchemy, but it is the same alchemy for everyone. And at some point, in the days leading up to the event, all the symptoms we all have, unreality, stasis, joy, spontaneity, having the banana as I say without knowing why, everything you perceive will be spread like a powder trail from everywhere. And at that moment, of course, there is no obligation or necessity for all consciences to have lived it, but this morphogenetic field of zero time, which is the end of the dream of creation, will actualize itself. So, of course, through the illusion of a destruction of the dream. Of course, events that have already taken place several times on Earth are happening. You would really have to be blind not to see them there. It's no longer a matter of predictions, prophecies or anything, they're concrete facts. All you have to do is find out, that's all. Only the one who is in denial, or who is not interested, because he is more interested in, and it is his right, in his small family or professional world, and who does not want to know anything else. But don't judge. You do not know if these brothers and sisters are not the closest to the heart of the heart. And they are certainly much closer to them today than those who still wander, in spirituality, in archetypes. So, is everyone asleep? No, it was a while ago. Yes, wait, I'm coming. Sister. It had been a while, the fire of the heart had been lit, so I had a friend who introduced himself, I took him, I did it. Then, well, it was over. And now it continues. So, letting it, just offering it, not knowing for whom, for what, just that, that's enough. yes, that's right. Sister, there is no need to put anyone in particular there. Exactly, it is the natural, spontaneous state of the glorious heart of Christ. That is why I say that those who live it, you live it, you're in the Christic state. Even if it seems unlikely or completely what pride, but no, not at all, you live it and that's the way it is. Indeed, at some point, as I said, this sacred heart fire, with all the other structures at the same time, and there, and you are Christ, so wherever you go, wherever you look, it will be transforming. There is no longer any need for intention, there is no need to decide, it is done by itself. At that moment, take the opportunity to live, that's all. Everything you're going to experience, under any circumstances, as you said, whether it's going shopping, playing golf, playing tennis, will have the same action. Sister, yes, it's over, to put yourself in a lottery into. There you go. So I, of course, am still here, because I'm interested, because I've observed this all my life. I feel good when there are requests that come in even without the internet, directly into me, but at the limit, now I've decided to, well, it's open, well go ahead, take it, I don't need to be interested, it's there. But it's the same for all those who are in this state. So, what to do with it, that's it, well, things happen, you let them cross over. And then it's going to happen even with a simple look anywhere. Sister, that too, in the end, is the Eucharist, it is this is my body, this is my blood, take and eat. Well, yes, yes, yes. It is the commissioning of the new Eucharist, which was deployed by Michael at the end of the heavenly weddings in September 2009. So, you see, it took 10 years. But what is it that 10 years on the scale of the time we spent in the dream? And now, indeed, that's it. When I say that's it, everything is accomplished, everything is realized, it's the strict truth. Since last year, I have been talking about a simulacrum and a sacred that would come together. I took the example of transgender and the primordial androgynous. You have the truth and the other, the mirror image, which is completely falsified. And everything is like that. The law of one, as I told you, what is called the law of one is the United Nations, sacred, simulacrum. But there is neither sacred, nor simulacrum, there is only one reality, there is no inside, there is no outside, that's what we end up with. Well, when we are there, well it's over, the simulacrum has joined the sacred, to understand, that they are only two shifted mirror images, which are the mirrors with the axis of helical light, which was present in Van Allen's belt, which is a plasma that reflects light, locking it up, because there is a distortion. Well, once it was destroyed, it took 10 months, as I said, for it to appear in the open, in everyone's experience. So, more or less easily, once again, what makes the difference between your case, who is living it, and someone who is beginning to discover it, or someone who is not living it? It is simply a greater availability at the reception desk. So there, of course, there are personal factors of personality functioning, temperament, are you extroverted or introverted, is your emotional intelligence turned towards you or towards others, that's what we have in the QPMDPRH assessments you have done, for some, that helps to enlighten. The only difference is in terms of behavior and habits. For example, if you are someone who has a primary temperament, called the search for novelty, it is one of the most important neurotransmitters in the brain. This search for novelty makes you move forward, you're available for the new, and this is new, what happens? And if, on the other hand, you're a conservative, someone who likes the rules, the frameworks, that is, someone who behaves in the reptilian way, I am not talking about reptilian origin, because there are very good people who behave in the reptilian way, that is, they need frames of reference, they need strict schedules, they need this, they need that, they need to frame everything. You can often see that, they won't like it, it's engineers or accountants, it's like that, well these people, well they're too rigid. While the one who has a search for novelty, an avidity for experiences, who is extroverted, is much more available to live this, than the one who is framed in his rigid frame of reference. And it is not at all related to stellar origins, it is only related to the structure of the personality and the different components of the personality, in particular what is called temperaments. Temperaments are only related to what are called primary behaviors. That's why I talked about behaviors. These primary behaviors, there are only 4 of them, and it is the arrangement of these 4 primary behaviors that creates temperament, what are called subpersonalities, that is, the mechanism of functioning of being, as identified by AYOUN, extroversion, introversion, mode of communication. Are you emotional? Are you perceptual? Are you rational? Are you active? And, of course, according to the behavioral structure and temperament structure, whatever your spiritual experiences may be, of course, there are temperaments and personalities that are much more likely to let themselves go through, because they are thirsty for newness, in search of novelty, whereas the one who is rigid, he avoids novelty, he needs frameworks, everything that is unknown frightens him, and I am not even talking about the absolute, there, I am talking in everyday life. These are people who really need reference points. They eat at such and such a time, they sleep at such and such a time, everything must be planned. Well, these are the ones they're worried about right now. While the one who is more in search of novelty, or in what is called the need for reward, or the social level, that is, the need to establish relationships, this one is easier, it is easier in this temperament, to live this fire of the Sacred Heart, for the moment. It is the only difference. It is not a difference in spiritual acquisition or positioning, or in the progression of vibration within the supraconsciousness. It is only related to the behavioral and character traits you have in this life, which I remind you is the result of all the others, from the first experience to the last. And since the first and last, within the illusion of individuality, show you today that you have lived everything, all the roles, all the functions, since everything happened at 0 time and that creation is a dream, a total illusion, well, it is obvious that what will play out here is no longer supraconsciousness. As I said, it is the type of temperament of the person. However, habits are the worst thing today, not before. Not before, I wouldn't have said that 2-3 years ago. Today, I say that. So, the characters or personalities who are more oriented towards the other, need of sociality, need of reward, it is what is called the limbal emotional system, but also what is called the heart, not the emotions of the plexus, but the neurotransmitter who acts on the sociality, the need for reward, it is in the middle of the chest. It's the norepinephrine. What is called the reptilian brain is linked to another neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, which governs how we react to a test. A trial can be a loss, a mourning, but it can also be an intrusion into your field of coherence and life of a new operating mechanism. Of course, the one who is afraid, well, he won't go looking for something new. And that's just the personal structure, it's not energetic or spiritual, it's how you work today, whatever your spiritual interest may be. How you will function in your life. Sister. Yes, that's right, we see a linearity. I was a speech therapist, then I did mental management, selfless spirituality, and now I really know that it is an outcome in care, in all these, as if there were convergence to come to the point. Yes, that's it, and you're going to see it more and more. So well the only advantage is that, having studied so many things, having developed the systems there, neuroscience and everything, well, I have an immediate understanding of these neural circuits that I don't see myself explaining, even if I've explained several things, going into the details of that, because if we don't have the neuroanatomical or biochemical and chemical knowledge of that, it's not easy to understand. It took me 10 years to synthesize that in 10 years, intensive. Fortunately, I had the measurement system that allowed me to validate this model, since I called it the MTEL model for regulating living systems. In fact, I never released it. I had sometimes presented it, at CanMES, I had presented slides of this model that I had developed, but it is also an approach. Why today I take up these famous assessments, the crystal formations, it's not to train people, it's to allow them to discover how it works. Because today, there are no more obstacles, because it is lived instantly. I tell you, I could do a crystal training or a belly dance class, it would be the same thing, and I'm not kidding, I'm not kidding. Sister, we are asking to see laughs. It can also be done by a comedian, making people laugh. There are some who do it very well, look, Muriel Remand who sang When We Were with the Whales, or Simon Charles, when he sings. He doesn't ask questions, and you are touched instantly, because he is in the present moment. Well, of course, there is a technique, or the technique of singing, of the guitar. Well, I'm the technique of understanding, whereas there's nothing to understand. It's wonderful. Laughs. But, nevertheless, it makes reference points that allow, like the testimonies, to strengthen you and make you resonate with that. But I had nothing to do with it, simply as I said at the time, the conductor, the one who wrote the script, who had also forgotten, well, he sees that the script is going perfectly. All we have to do is let it happen. We simply accompany him by joy, by exchanges, by testimonies, by hiking, in all circumstances. And of course, that's where the differences between brothers and sisters are. Those who are in search of new things or who are, as they say, extroverted, have much more ease than those who are introverted. The same applies to modes of communication. There are several modes of communication in the human being that are often not isolated, but rather associated 2 by 2 or 3 by 3, and depending on your mode of communication, it will be more or less easy. If you have a rational mode of communication, where you need to be explained things before you experience them, you will not succeed. If you're an emotional, you can do it, because you come back in sympathy with the other or in empathy with the other. If you're an active person, you are too much in the future, you will not succeed. If you're in the perceptual, you will succeed if you cross perceptions, feelings and vibrations. If you're a conceptual, someone who uses ideas, well, it will work very well, because today concepts are accompanied by vibrations, simple words, agape, eba, embrace. All this has a resonance in your brain and induces a change in the location of consciousness. It's as simple as that. So, that's what the different temporal frames are at the moment, and that all those who are in the present moment, for example, people who are inserted in the most normal life, without asking themselves any questions, but who are completely invested in what they do. I'm not talking about greed, financial greed or selfishness, but for example, a dentist who is fully in his work and conscientious in his work, who does not believe in anything, is more likely to live it. Because he is really in what he does, he is not dreaming, he is not feeling energies or projecting himself into the future, he is obliged to be in what he does. And that's why you've all noticed, for example, if you have a garden, if you're in the garden, or if you're an artist and you paint, you completely empty your head, you're in the moment. The one who projects, the one who is what we call rational or active, is not in the present moment, and for him there are many difficulties, even if he has lit the self, even if he has lit all the crowns, even if he has lit all the possible vibrations, and he has seen all the possible and unimaginable things, he will not be able, because it is his structure of functioning, to do so as neither karmic, nor resistance, nor injury. These are mechanisms of habits, behaviors. And that is very clear, very explainable and increasingly easy to live with. That's it. So I'm not giving you any teaching, I'm giving you the reference points where you can situate yourself, and that's all I'm doing now. So obviously, we have vibratory contributions with Feham, with Eba, with the fire of the Sacred Heart, but this whole process takes place naturally, spontaneously, automatically, as I was saying. This is the principle of what is called chemical catalysis. You have two bodies that have to react together, they can't react until there is a catalyst. The catalyst is what? It is zero time, it is not Jean-Luc or Young, neither, nor Feham, even if they participated. If we participated in that, it is only the possibility to escape, through the circumstances of the light, the intelligence of the light, the past frames of reference and the projections in the future. All this tension that we had for many towards the event, in the meantime, by looking for the dates, only served to disgust you with the dates, even I must do it, and to no longer mention any date, simply to accompany what is happening. When there is Schumann resonance, well, I put it on, well, it matches. But don't say, tomorrow it's going to happen, even if I know it, just let it happen. That's how you embrace people. And in all the circumstances of your life, I do not speak only in relation to spirituality, even in the most insignificant events of the most daily life, such as going to the toilet, going to the bathroom, saying hello to your janitor or neighbor. In other words, that is what he said a few years ago when he said, put love in front of you, up above, before, but this time it was a projection of love. No, now we are in this state of love, we don't need to plan anything. That's why I tell you, when you make a sacred heart fire, you don't project anything, even if you have the impression that it comes out or comes in, and it comes out and comes in fact, it doesn't move. You actualize the presence of the other in you, but not the presence of its essence, the totality of creation. They insisted enough, the archangels, long before the celestial wedding and all, on this notion that all creation was inness. But no matter how much we are told, as long as we don't live it, it's a concept. Now, we don't need to elaborate concepts or philosophies about it, since it's livable, in its entirety, and you don't risk anything. On the contrary, the more you do it, the more you will feel liberated, the more you will be in this embracing of the present moment, the more you will see miracles in you and outside you. Of course, it is a form of learning, not from faith or trust, but really to recognize you, beyond any form, as this intelligence of the light. Love, that's it. Even if we lean on the body, as we are doing here, in terms of practices, saying, it comes out of me, it goes to you, or it comes into me, because we embrace, in fact it has never moved. But for that, you have to experience the different points of view, the point of view of the person, the point of view of the heart, to realize that you are all points of view and that you are the whole creation on your own. This is what Nisargadatta said, the only difference between you and me is that I know that I am God, and you don't know it yet. There are truculent sentences like that. Well, Christian singer, I talked about it, you also had, what his name is Mehaka, the very short sentence, when you asked him, and the other one? But there is no other, there is only me, and each of us can say it, the eternal I, the natural state. So, of course, it puts an end to all pretensions, to all acquisitions, it puts an end to all desires, which does not prevent us from living, which does not prevent us from eating, as I said, which does not prevent us from making love, but it is not the result of a desire, even food, nor a disgust, nor even a vital need. Freedom becomes total also in relation to this. I told you, whether I eat or not, the weight no longer moves. This is insane. I can eat 5,000 calories, so it's almost gone, but if there's a good couscous, I don't say, or a good cassoulet, I don't say. Shit, it's recorded. Laughs. And again. In intention, it is still present, but in reality, no. But that means that inner freedom is also an outer freedom. Of course, we are still subject to societal conventions and rules of behavior, but we had full latitude in this. But it is something that is so great, this new freedom, that, for the conservative, for the introverted, for the one who has set himself reference or protection or security frameworks, well, it is not right away, it's more cumbersome. And all those who are in the moment, even without talking about spirituality or anything, I took the example of the dentist who is, or the gardener who is in his garden, who is much better able to live this. But it was all these people who were spirituality, including us, who made this possible for the simplest of people. The first are the last will be the first, as has always been said. Now it's becoming more and more understandable. So, if you want, it's a joke, when I say it's a video game, when you really see it beyond any bias, any person, any representation and any form, well, you see that, indeed, as the Orientals have always said, it's a total illusion. Suffering is not an illusion, however. But it is precisely because we did not see that it was an illusion that we suffer. Pain and suffering should not be confused, they are not the same neural activations in the brain. They are not the same memories at all. An animal knows when it hurts, it has pain, but it cannot report it to an injury or anything. We are moving from a binary logic to a ternary logic. In terms of simulacra, it means moving from the computers we know to quantum computers, which is no longer a 0-1, which is a 0-1, and also, 0 and 1, neither 0, nor 1. It's quantum. So if you want, it's no longer a binary choice, but a ternary choice. It is the ternary operator of creation, what we call quantum computers. It is everything that has come out in the last year, especially, what we call the study of disruption, collapse and downfall, or extinction level event, that we are experiencing. It's all part of the same dream exit mechanism for everyone. So, if I say that about behavior, about temperament or the person, for those who are not yet living it, it doesn't matter, you are not responsible for anything, it is your automatisms of functioning, of temperament, linked to your neurotransmitters and to the structure of your personality that is linked to the organization of certain neurotransmitters, which is also a so-called hereditary component, transgenerational, that slow you down. It's not your fault, sister. And so, who keeps locking us up? Accept that, you don't have to oppose your rigidity, you don't have to work on your fears today, I've never repeated myself as much, as you have to cross and embrace, and it's over. So, it seems to me, but something, when we have experienced it, so childish, so simple to implement, it needs neither technique, nor practice, nor anteriority, nor any vision, nor any energy whatsoever, to be realized. It's just fear blocking it. But the fear of what? Fear of the new, of the unknown, as they used to say. But this new guy, this stranger, he's there, everywhere. It is zero time that is accessible to everyone. So it doesn't matter if there are any who are in resistance or opposition, as I always said and as I said before it recorded, it doesn't matter if you agree with what I say or not, if you heard it or read it, you are contaminated. No luck. It's the truth, too. And again, it doesn't matter to me, I'm not claiming anything about that, is it? Come on, it's 5-1, don't you have anything else to say? Yes. Sister, it means that, in fact, anyone we meet or see will be contaminated. What do you mean, with that? Sister, will be contaminated. Yes, of course, it's going to be like that very, very quickly. You will not be able not to contaminate, you will not be able to escape it, that is clear. It will come out of you, as you said, spontaneously, you can't do anything about it. As Christ said, "Who touched me?" Do you believe that Christ, even when he performed miracles, he cast out demons and everything, he needed to align himself, he needed to call upon energies, he needed to pray, he needed to call upon his Father, or to call upon anything? No. No, it is the Christic state that generates this, it is not you, it is not your intention, it is not your will. The Christic state today is the present moment and the embrace, because it is efficient. 3 years ago, I would never have told you that right now. Besides, I've never told you about I've had told before, because it was useless before, even if some of them were helped, let's face it, by that. But that didn't allow you to be free. It's like all the people who spent their lives listening, in his lifetime, to Krishnamurti, or who licked the boots of the Universal White Brotherhood, they considered him a father, and even if he was sick of it, at the end. And there is no question of being taken for a father, even if Agape is there, I am not, I claim nothing, I did not create anything, even if I was part of the creation, but I did not dream anything, but I participated in the dream, necessarily. But that's the only difference, everything else, if you want, now it's going to happen automatically. The more spontaneous you are, the more real you will be. The more independent you are from a point of view of your history, or your conditioning, or your learning, temperament, behavior in relation to, not even your injuries, but your habits, the more true you will be. The less you are in the visions, even the most wonderful ones, the more true you will be. Which doesn't mean you have to delete the visions, I didn't say that, did I? We have a messenger, an intergalactic reporter, who reports the visions to us. I never said we shouldn't, I simply said that these visions are points of support. They are just as unreal as all visions. But nevertheless, it allows countless brothers and sisters to, like the testimonies, it is the same thing, to make beings resonate, that's all. And that's how you recognize yourself and the proof, well, you see the testimonies, you see what happens after you even read the testimonies of the people. It is even sometimes, often even more important than I can say, fortunately. Fortunately, that's the way it is. I do not claim any ownership or responsibility. It's not me. It's not me. It's the script that was written like that, it's not me. Laughs. That's it, we stop and resume at 3:00 p.m. Through Jean-Luc Young. Les Transformations. Transcription. Agape Team. English translation, LMF.